Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I'm back with another emergency card video. I have 6 quick cards for you today using Freebie Kit 71. This kit released last Friday, but we did more stepped up cards then. So here we're going to make 5 cards and then like a gift card holder situation. So I'm going to do just a really quick flip through. The first handful of pages with all of the circle sentiments and the card sketch are just linked in the description box below. All I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. And then there are a bunch of extra freebie pages linked over in my Patreon. So I will link to that post and below that to a video explaining my Patreon and how to join for free. I love all of the fun themes, the birds, the sea, the walruses. I will link you to last week's video where we used the Spellbinders Small Die of the Month Walrus for some hilarious cards. And you can also get a closer walkthrough of all the sentiments that are in this kit and who gets what, because I have 4 levels of paid membership over in Patreon. I've sort of marked them in here just with some dividers. But hopefully it's pretty clear here which pages belong to which tier. If you have any questions, certainly you can leave them in the comments section below. Starting at the $5 tier, you get a searchable sketch database. And then at $12, you can get direct downloads in that database and resizable sentiments. And then our $25 tier gets a second database just for sentiments and resizable images for everything. So I am starting with our card sketch, and then I have a colored A2 card base, which I don't do very often. Mine is top folding, and I am adding on my pattern paper. So this piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I want a teeny tiny little border. Then I have 3 1-inch circles, and I took my 3/4 inch circle die to the middle of them and cut out the middle. They aren't perfectly even, but it's a handmade card, so I'm not super worried about it. I'm just laying out all my pieces and making sure that there's room. And then I'm going to trace around the inside of all of these circles. I don't actually trace the middle one at first, but I went back and did it later. So just pretend like I did it to all 3 at the beginning, which would have been smarter. So we're actually making a bit of a fun fold here, right? You could just put everything on the front of the card, but I'm bringing in my 3/4 inch punch. That's what's in the middle of my circles that I traced. And I am punching out all 3 of those circles. So we'll be able to see from the outside to the inside of the card. I can also see a bunch of white from the white cardstock that I printed on. And so I am just using the darkest blue marker I had quickly available and going around the inside. No one's going to look that closely that it's not an exact match, but it will sort of hide that flash of white you get on the inside. I'm adding a little bit of glue just around the outer edges. And then I'm going to push these right into place. And once I have them on there, I like to take my finger and just sort of swirl it around on the inside. It's that inside that's more important than where the outside looks like it's sitting. So I'll show you this one more time. Little glue around the outside edge, and then I'm going to place that on top of it. And I'm just going to use my finger to make sure that all of those edges are lining up perfectly. And I actually love the look of that dark blue shining through, but we'll do something really fun in a minute. So these are the tuck strip sentiments. This is our newest style, and I am only cutting on the black lines, not the optional light purple lines. So I start at the bottom and I stop before I get all the way through. But when I get to that last section, I am going to trim away all of those ephemera pieces so that I can just cut sideways, connecting the tick marks I have left. This way I get perfectly sized sentiments. These are about 2 7/8 by 7/8 of an inch. I have then a matte layer that is 3 inches wide by 1 inch tall, and this will fit perfectly with the tiniest little border that matches the border around the outside of our card. I'm putting a little bit of glue on that white section that's hanging out on the left, and I will add on my 2-inch circle. Then for the inside, I'm going to trim away the excess white section. So I actually want this a little tighter than it would be if you use that optional cut line. So mine is about 1 7/8 of an inch by 7/8 of an inch. Next, I'm using my 1-inch punch and I'm cutting out both of the birds that are in the freebie paper from Patreon. There are 3 pages of digital paper. There's another page of digital paper in the $5 tier that has additional birds, and then another one again at the $12 tier. So I use the $5 tier to cut out one more bird. It has a background that's really similar to the freebie paper. I should have also said the background paper, the bigger piece of pattern paper with the lighthouses, is in that Saskatier membership. But our pelican, he's free. He's in the Patreon free download. And we're using a tuck strip sentiment that says, just because you pelican doesn't mean you pella should. And I need to give it to every member of my family. I'm adding a white panel on the inside of my card. So this is going to measure 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to work on placing my bird. So I'm taking my first bird. The bird itself is 1 inch, and then I have a mat that's 1 1/8 of an inch. And I am just figuring out kind of where I want him positioned, and I'm holding that flat against the front of the card. I've added glue, and I will very carefully close this. If you close it too fast, just like a little gust of wind, and it will push it out of placement. It gets real weird. So my first one is just a little sort of to the side, and then I have this very staid bird with some glasses on, and he's just going to be like center, standing there, looking like he doesn't really want to have to people. There are faster ways to do this, but this is what made sense to me at the time. So I'm just kind of like placing them and checking and seeing if I like it. And once I get it where I like it, I am holding it in place, using my pokey tool to get under there, and then squirting little bits of glue. I use Barely Art, and so it comes with this fine tip bottle that makes it very easy to get in there. So I want this bird like upside down and a little like off to the side. But on the inside, it's difficult to tell that these aren't the same size as the circles on the front of the card. They're ever so slightly bigger. So here's my inside sentiment that says, doesn't mean you pella should. And I'm just going to line that up so the top, bottom, and left margins are the same. And then I will trim away the right-hand side until it matches. And a lot of times I have to cut more than once, just little slivers, but I got super lucky this time and it was perfect. I like that lined up kind of between the top and middle circles. I have some little fuzzies hanging on around my dies. I don't know if you get this. So I have a stiff bristled brush. It is stiff because there's still paint that dried in there, but I just go over it and it gets rid of some of that. And my friends, that's card number 1, and it's probably the most complicated card we're going to make. Little fun fold. Card number 2 is the easiest card that we're going to make, and it's my favorite paper. This is from that $12 tier, the Saskatier membership, but I had to use this. It's got all those goofy birds and like a seamless pattern. It's not actually seamless, but it's close, and it looks like it, and I love that. Then I have another of my tuck sentiments that I cut out that says, "Holy flock, it's your birthday." Can you imagine this flock of birds in their party hats, and some of them looking very serious? It's like any little group of friends or family, I suppose. I'm going to pop all of that up on some 1mm thin foam. And then if you have the $5 membership, you get this page that has 16 pieces of ephemera instead of just 4. But I picked a bird for this card that is on that freebie Patreon ephemera. It's the same page as the tuck strip sentiments, and I will add him on there. So you could just use a different pattern paper in the background and make the same card. For our next couple cards, we're using the Spellbinders Large Die of the Month for June 2025. We'll use the houses, we'll use the hills. I'm going to use that wave again. And then there is a sailboat you get if you get the deluxe caboodle, which is when you get all of the clubs. It's a 60% savings. I don't use the bonus item very often because I know so few people get it, but I just thought it was so fitting with, you're getting a sneak peek of next Friday's kit. With one of those sentiments. So you'll get that sneak peek here in a hot minute. I added extra layers onto this card panel. So that cloud pattern paper is in the Patreon freebie version. It is 4 by 5 1/4. And then I added that onto a piece that was 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and that onto a piece that was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, so just little 1/8 inch differences there. These mountains are adorable. Like they're just a little whimsical. There's only 2 different sizes, but we're going to make it look like there's 3. And actually, I have my 1-inch circles lined up here. And in the end, I don't use them, but I'm kind of sad about it. Once I was looking at them and editing, I was like, oh, that was really cute. I have additional mountains cut, so I'll probably just make another one because I still have the circles. So I'm lining all of this up, and then I will just start pulling them away and adding glue onto the corners where they're going to overlap. I like to be able to work with these things as a single piece if I can. Plus, I forgot to trim this other mountain, right? I don't want the whole thing on there. And the time to trim it would have been to add it onto the pattern paper and then trim away so that it matched the bottom of that. But I lost that option when I got excited and just glued all my panels together. So I added 1mm thin foam onto the back of it. If you're not super familiar with foam depth, 1mm is about as thin as it gets. So typically I can mail a card with 1mm foam and it doesn't take extra postage. I have that same foam behind my sentiment here, but it's 1 inch wide, so I don't have to deal with as many backing strip pieces. So here is the sort of lighthouse and home sentiments. We used these last week, except that there are 4 A2 panels where it prints straight onto the panel. And here I'm going to use the rectangle sentiments. So I started at the bottom tick mark, I cut towards the top, but didn't cut all the way through. Then when I rotate, I get my little strips and I have tick marks on the side, and we're going to use all of the sentiments at the bottom. So I have my A2 card base. I'm using top folding, but that's just because it's easier to photograph. You do whatever makes you happy here. And then we're going to make a little sort of punny outside, inside sentiment. I have another sentiment mat that I'm going to put down at the bottom. Those are 2.5 by 1.5 inches. Our rectangle sentiments are 2.25 by 1.25. And on the outside, it says, "Why are mountains so funny?" Because they're hill areas. And I lost it. The first time I heard that dad joke, I just absolutely lost it. So that, my friends, is card number 3. Again, really quick and easy, trying to use the other dies in a set that I used on a more complicated card last week. I did love this sailboat, and I already had a wave put together from last week because I made more than I needed. And so I'm going to show you assembly for the sailboat. But please know you could do this in many other ways, and I have lots of other sort of sailing inspiration for you coming up. The kit for next Friday is sailing and citrus and cruises. And then I have one other theme. If I have time to add another theme, there will be another one because I don't know when to quit. Otherwise, there'll probably be like a bonus printable sometime this month. I'm not sure where this last piece is supposed to go, so I stuck it on the sail on the right. I don't know. I looked online and nobody seemed to have added that piece, or they put it somewhere that wasn't really obvious to me. But I'm going to add my little wave onto the bottom. Yes, we're sort of like floating in the middle of some clouds, but it doesn't bother me. Then I have thin foam again, you guessed it, on my sailboat. And I will just stick that right on top. And once again, I will add my rectangle sentiment. So I wouldn't show you how to cut these again, except that you haven't seen these sentiments. So if you're really interested in finding out what they say, take a quick peek now. I have this sped up more than normal, but you certainly could take a screenshot. If you are excited about the sailing, cruising theme, let me know in the comments below. I had a couple of people who were really, really excited about it, and that's always super fun. I have never sailed before. I've been on boats, but not a cruise ship. I don't know. So yeah, I want to know what you love about it and what makes it so awesome for you. So I am using Let's Sailbrate, and we'll add that onto the front. And there's card number 4. Next, we're going to use the houses from the large die of the month. And these are meant to be like houses that would go by the lighthouse that's in there. But I decided we're going to do like a new neighbor, or this could be congratulations on your new home, right? And so unfortunately, as I was in the middle of putting these houses together, my camera died. Well, it overheated and then it, and then it died. And I get about 2 seconds to register that this is happening, and then sometimes I've already moved on. The transition I don't think is too bad, but if it looks kind of weird or the coloring is a little different, it's because I'm filming like days and days later at a totally different time of day. So anywho, this shorter house has room for 2 windows and no door, and I don't like that. So I added a white door over top of one of the windows, and then I'm using this sentiment, I hope your new neighbors aren't weirdos. And you got to figure, which house is the weirdo house? The one with the pink roof or the one that looks like Wednesday Addams lives in it? I'm not sure. I'm probably the weirdo who lives in both. We're going to use the Treat Yourself gift card holder from Spellbinders to finish up this card. And so it comes with this larger piece, and there's a short flap and a long flap, and they both fold the same direction. Okay, so I have burnished the one flap, but then I was coming in with some ink just along the bottom front, and then I didn't like it enough. So I decided to tape off at the score line here and come in from the top as well, just sort of all around the sides. There's some debossed area in the middle that's a scallop pattern, but it's bigger than the scallop. That is that sort of shimmery white piece you can see on the left of my screen, kind of under my hand. And so I was really looking to kind of highlight that or make that stand out a little more or create some variation. I don't want this to be too plain on the front, but I just pulled off my masking, cleaned off my glass mat real quick, and that worked really, really well. By the way, if you're interested in a glass mat, I do have a coupon code for you. I'll put in the description box below. In fact, I have a bunch of exclusive coupon codes. I'll just put everything in the description box below. You know me. If you're going to do shopping, I want you to get a bargain. So I am adding on, this is like shimmer white cardstock, and trying to get it centered in the debossed area, or embossed. I guess it's raised, so it's embossed on that panel. And then I will add my houses kind of to the left. It didn't look finished when I put them on there, or maybe I'm just uncomfortable with white space. Anybody else, raise your hands. Uncomfortable with white space, not good at clean and simple. So I'm going to come back to that. But for now, I'm going to open this up. I had it kind of taped shut so I could work with it flat. And I'm going to add another panel to the inside. It's not the exact same dimensions as a rectangle sentiment from our emergency kits, but it's pretty close. If you're new here, by the way, my sentiments always come in the same key sizes, so they're sort of interchangeable. It's either this rectangle or a 1 3/4 inch circle, or now we have the tuck strip sentiments that are new. Okay, so I have a few more die pieces I have cut out. There's a die that comes in this gift card holder that has like some little stars of different shapes and hearts of different shapes and sizes. And I'm going to add a little trio of them onto the front and then a handful of stars on the inside. I'm not usually a star person, but they were so little and tiny and cute. You certainly could use like some embellishments instead if you've got some sequins or something like that to add a little extra shine. But my friends, we're almost there. I'm going to grab a gift card or hotel key because I don't actually have any gift cards right now. I'm going to tuck that on the inside. And then here I have a 3/8 inch Velcro dot that I have cut down. This is less than half of it. These things are super strong. I want the clear part at the top and the white part at the bottom, right where my sentiment is. I want that to not be distracting. Okay, so I'm just lining up my 2 pieces and then I will press them together firmly. I'm always really careful the first time I open this back up and then I can press on each side individually and make sure that it's really good and on there, but the adhesive is excellent. I think I got mine at Joann's, but if I can find them online, I will link them for you. I've seen other card makers use much bigger Velcro dots. You don't need the big ones. My friends, here is our adorable gift card holder. I love it so much. And now we're on card number 6. So this is called Amalfi Breeze, and we get this curvy girl, and I love it. I love that we don't get like some skinny child as our die cut person. Next summer, maybe they'll make an apple-bodied girl. But for now, we're making my sisters. So she has one leg that you glue on separately and a swimsuit and her hair, and that is it. The only other die in that set is the sort of pink and purple pieces you see up there at the top. Also, I have a panel on the left that I don't end up using, so just ignore that for now. I have seen lots of samples where they use just one layer of the fringe, but I like two. You just have to cut it twice and then trim one down, remove one piece of fringe. And these are really simple to just glue together. And then you get plenty of color and lots of sort of fun layering in there. I have cut a piece of pattern paper to 2.5 inches wide, and I'm just gluing that onto the end. That pattern paper is from the $5 tier. And then I'm gonna glue my girl onto our towel, and then I'll trim off the other end, right? I wanna make sure this is long enough for her body to fit on because she's a smart girl and she bought a towel that will fit her and be comfortable, right? We were at Great Wolf Lodge with the kids earlier in the week, and the towels are tiny. Like, it barely wraps around my body. I can't even. All right, so I was positioning my girl on that panel and it just felt really dark. So I'm making a new one. I'm using the same embossing folder. It's the Summertime Waves 2D embossing folder. If it's still available, I'll link it. I don't know if it is, but I just wanted some kind of texture in the background. I thought this worked pretty well for sand. And then I'm coming up from the bottom this time with a lighter color of ink and then with a light hand kind of all over just to bring out the texture here. Then I'll bring in the same color ink I used before, which is like a medium brown at the bottom, just to create a larger gradation as we're moving up the card. So that will be at the bottom, and then towards the top, it's much, much lighter. And I like that much better. So here's our girl. We're going to put her sort of cattywampus on here. Her towel will hang off of the card, and I'm going to glue that straight down. Because of that fringe, I don't dare pop it up. Also, I don't know that like thematically popping it up would work, but I do love just a little bit of dimension somewhere. I'll use my scissors to quickly trim off the excess from two of my edges. This is super simple. I just cut right along with the cardstock and use it to let it guide that. I knocked over my glue, you guys. Everything's fine. But I'll trim that off, and I'll try to keep my gestures a little more contained while we finish up this voiceover. Her sentiment says, "This is my resting beach face," and I love it so much. So let's take one more look at the cards we made. So the first pretty much follows the sketch, except that it's a fun fold. Then we have a super quick and simple card. Then we have some funny punny hill areas, followed by a celebrate sneak peek of next week's kit, some resting beach face, and a gift card holder. I hope your new neighbors aren't weirdos. My friends, I hope this gives you lots of inspiration. If you're interested in the free download, check the description box below the video. All I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.